Okay, so today we're going deep on spiral dynamics.
Ooh, that's a fun one.
It is, and it's one of those things that I think a lot of people are aware of, sort of on the surface level,
Mm-hmm.
but I don't think a lot of people have really taken a deep dive into how it can actually, like, practically impact their lives.
Right.
And so that's what we're doing today.
Yeah.
So we are using a video from John Rasmussen, and
Yeah, I love his stuff.
he's great. And in this video, he's kind of tackling the idea of spiral dynamics and relationships. And
Fascinating.
yeah, and I think this is something that really resonates with me because so often you find yourself in these kind of conversations with people where you just feel like you're speaking completely different languages.
Oh, yeah, all the time.
Yeah, and you're disagreeing, but it's not even like you're disagreeing on the surface level. It's like you're disagreeing on like a fundamental like values level.
Exactly. And I think that's what spiral dynamics really gets at is this idea that people develop in stages. And it's not like one stage is better than another. It's more like different worldviews, and these worldviews inform how we see the world, how we interact with others. And
Yeah, it's like leveling up in a video game, right?
oh, I love that analogy.
You're still but as you progress, you unlock new abilities, you have new perspectives, and so
That's perfect because it really emphasizes that you're not less than.
right.
You're not better than, you're just at a different stage in the game.
Exactly. And I think that's where a lot of the misunderstandings come from in relationships is that we tend to view other people through the lens of our own stage.
Absolutely. We project our own level of development onto others and assume that if they don't see things the way we do, they must be somehow or less evolved.
Yeah, and Rasmussen actually points out this really interesting thing in the video. He talks about how historically so many of these kind of pioneering thinkers were ridiculed and persecuted
It's true.
for their ideas because they were ahead of their time, right?
Mhm.
They were at a higher level on the spiral than the people around them.
And I think we still see this today, right?
Absolutely.
Like when you think about the people who are really pushing boundaries in any field, they're often met with resistance and misunderstanding.
Yeah. What are some like current examples that come to mind for you?
Well, I mean, look at the debates around climate change, right?
Yeah.
Someone operating from a very individualistic worldview might prioritize economic growth over environmental concerns.
Right.
They might see any attempt to regulate industry as an infringement on their personal freedom.
Right.
But someone with a more holistic perspective might champion sustainability even if it means economic sacrifices because
Wow.
they understand that we're all interconnected and the health of the planet ultimately impacts everyone.
That's such a good example, and it's so true. And so I guess the question then becomes, okay, so how do we actually use this knowledge to improve our relationships? Right?
Oh.
Like, let's say I'm talking to my uncle, at Thanksgiving,
Oh boy.
and he's got very, like, traditional views on things.
Okay.
How would understanding spiral dynamics change my approach?
Well, the key takeaway from Rasmussen's video is this idea of meeting people where they are.
Okay.
If you're the one who's aware of spiral dynamics, you have a responsibility to try to build rapport with the other person.
Okay, so instead of just, like, writing them off
Right.
as, like, oh, they're just stuck in their ways,
Exactly.
I need to try to, like, actually understand their perspective.
To try to understand the values that are driving their viewpoint. And
But how do you actually do that?
it's tricky, but that's where the real magic of this model comes in.
Okay.
So let's say you're having that conversation with your uncle about family values, and he's expressing very traditional views that you might not personally agree with.
Yeah.
Instead of immediately launching into a lecture about progressive ideals, you could ask him about the traditions that he cherishes and why they're so important to him.
Okay, so I'm like finding that common ground.
Exactly.
But like, won't that feel like I'm agreeing with him?
It's not about agreeing, it's about understanding. By actively listening and acknowledging his perspective, you create a bridge for genuine dialogue. And who knows, that might even open him up to considering different perspectives down the line.
And that's where the potential for growth comes in, right?
Exactly. It's not just about us helping them move up the spiral. It's a two-way street. We can also learn and grow from interacting with people at different stages.
So it's like that saying, if you want to be interesting, be interested.
I love that.
Yeah, so just to kind of recap here, I guess the main takeaway is that spiral dynamics gives us this framework for understanding that people are at different levels of development, just like in that video game analogy.
Mm-hmm.
And to really have healthy relationships, you have to recognize those differences and meet people where they are.
It's all about understanding empathy and genuine connection. Instead of viewing our differences as obstacles, we can see them as opportunities for growth,
I love that.
both individually and collectively.
Okay, so here's a question for you to think about. How Might understanding this concept of spiral dynamics change the way you approach conversations with people who have drastically different views than you?
It's a powerful tool for bridging divides and building understanding.
And that's it for our deep dive on spiral dynamics. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me. This is fun.